Hello and good morning. We from Group 3. So today we are going to present about economic efficiency, government price setting, and tax. For the introduction, let's see some concept and definition. So economic efficiency refer to a situation where resources are used in the best possible way to maximize societal welfare. Government price setting involve intervention in the market to establish maximum price ceiling or minimum price floor, usually to protect consumer or producer. For example, rent control or minimum wages. Tax are a tool for government to raise revenue, influence consumption, and correct market imbalance. However, tax can also create deadweight loss, reducing economic efficiency by moving price and quantities away from the market optimum. Now let's start with the concept of consumer surplus. Consumer surplus refer to the extra benefit consumer receive when they pay less than the maximum price they are willing to pay for a good or service. First, let's look at the left graph, which is explain marginal benefit. On the vertical axis, we have price in RM per cup, while the horizontal axis show quantity of cup consumed per week. The downward sloping line represents the demand curve, which is also the marginal benefit curve. This show that as consumption increase, the marginal benefit decrease. For example, at point A, Joe marginal benefit from consuming the fifth cup is RM5, meaning he is willing to pay up to RM5 for that cup. At point B, when consumption increase to the seventh cup, the marginal benefit fall to RM3, indicating lower additional certification from extra consumption. And now let's move to the right graph, which is illustrate consumer surplus. The vertical axis represent price and the horizontal axis represent quantity demanded. The demand curve show the max the demand curve show the maximum willingness to pay of consumer. In this case, the market is RM5 per cup indicated by the horizontal dash line. Consumer purchase the quantity where the demand curve intersect the market price. The shade area between the demand curve and the market price line represent consumer surplus. For example, some consumers are willing to pay up to RM20, but they only pay RM5, creating a price difference of RM15 as a consumer surplus. Next, we move to producer surplus. Producer surplus refer to the extra benefit received by producer when they sell a good at a price higher than the minimum price they are willing to accept. First, let's look at the left graph, which focus on marginal cost. On the vertical axis, we have price in dollar per cup, while the horizontal axis show quantity of cup produced per week. The upward sloping line represents the supply curve, which is also the marginal cost curve. This means that as a producer increase output, the cost of producing each additional unit increase. For example, at the point A, the marginal cost of producing the 110 cups is 4 dollars. At point B, the marginal cost of producing the 120 cup rise to $5. Assuming the market price is $5 per cup, producer will continue producing as long as price is greater than or equal to marginal cost. For the 110 cup, the producer surplus is uh, $5 minus $4, which equal $1. This means the producer gain one extra dollar from selling that cup. Now let's move to the right graph, which show total producer surplus. The vertical axis represent price and the horizontal axis represent quantity supplied per week. The supply curve again reflect marginal cost at the horizontal line at $5 show the market price. The shade area between the market represent and the shade area between the market price and the supply curve represent total producer supplies. Yearly unit have lower marginal cost, so they generate larger surplus, while later unit have higher marginal cost giving some smaller surplus. The last unit produce gives zero producer surplus where price equal marginal cost. Now we look at economic efficiency and market equilibrium under perfect competition. In a competitive market, equilibrium occur when quantity demand equal quantity supplied. At this point, the market outcome is economically efficient. First, let's focus on economic efficiency. Economic efficiency occur when marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost for the last unit produced. At this level of output, resources are allocated to the in the best possible way and total economic surplus is maximized. Now let's refer to the graph on the right. The downward sloping line represents demand, which reflect marginal benefit, while the upward sloping line represents supply, which reflect marginal cost. The point where the demand and supply curve intersect, label point C, is the equilibrium point. At this point, marginal benefit equal marginal cost at the level of output is economically efficient. If output is below equilibrium, such as at point A and point B, marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost. This means some units that are worth produced are not produced. So output is efficiency low. On the other hand, if output is above equilibriums, such as at point D and at point E, marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit. This means some units are produced that cost more to make them the benefit they provide. So output is efficiently high. Next, let's look at economic surplus. Economic surplus is the sum of consumer surplus and producer surplus, and it represents the total benefit to society. And at the equilibrium price and quantity, total economic surplus is maximized. Now consider what happens when price is above equilibrium. When price is set above equilibrium, it leads to a surplus or excess supply. Some goods are produced even though their cost is higher than the benefit to consumer, causing economic surplus to decrease. Similarly, when price is below equilibrium, it leads to a shortage or excess demand. Some consumers who value the good more than its cost are unable to purchase it, and again, economic surplus decrease. Next is price ceiling. A price ceiling is a legally determined maximum price that sellers are allowed to charge. It's set by the government below the equilibrium price to make essential goods more affordable, especially essential items such as rice. The purpose of price ceiling is to help low-income consumers prevent exploitation during shortage and maintain good security. Before the price ceiling is imposed, the equilibrium price is RM3 per kilogram, and the equilibrium quantity is um, 10,000 kilogram. At this equilibrium point, the market is efficient because consumer surplus and producer surplus are maximized and there is no shortage. When the government impose a price ceiling R, at RM2 per kilogram, consumer pay a lower price. Consumer supplies increase for consumer who are able to purchase rice at this price. However, producers receive a lower price, causing producer surplus to decrease since RM2 is not profitable. Producer reduce the quantity supplied. As a result, quantity demand increased to for 14,000 kilogram, which quantity supplied decreased to 6,000 kilogram. This create a shortage of 8,000 kilogram in the market. Moving on, the price floor. A price floor is legally determined minimum price that seller may receive. It is usually set above the equilibrium price to protect producer or worker. The purpose of a price floor is ensure minimum income, stabilize the market, and prevent exploitation. In the labor market, wages are originally at W0, which is considered too low. Therefore, the government introduced a price floor in the form of minimum wage to protect market. At the minimum wages is imposed the At the minimum wages is imposed, the wages rate increase. The quantity of labor demand decrease from L0 to L2, with the quantity of labor supply increase from L2 to L3. This result is a surplus of labor, which, which mean unemployment. Some worker benefit from higher wages, but other lose job opportunities to lower demand for labor. Net is deadweight loss. Deadweight loss refer to the reduction in total economic surplus when the market is not operating. At competitive equilibrium in this diagram, the vertical axis represent price while the horizontal axis represent quantity. The downward sloping curve is the demand curve, which show consumer willingness to pay, and the upward sloping curve is the supply curve, which represent producer cost of production. At this at the point where the demand and supply curve intersect, the market is in equilibrium with an equilibrium price of 2 of RM2 and an equilibrium quantity of 50 unit. At this equilibrium, total surplus is maximized, meaning there is no deadweight loss. However, when a price control is imposed at 2 point RM 2.2, the market price is set above the equilibrium price. As a result, quantity supply increased to 60 unit, while quantity demand fall to 40 unit, creating a mismatch in the market. This caused the quantity actually trade to fall below the equilibrium level. The yellow shade area represent producer surplus, while the green shade area represent consumer surplus. Due to the reduction in quantity trade, both consumer and producer surplus decrease. The blue shade triangular area between the demand and supply cost represent the deadweight loss. This area show the loss of potential gain from trade that no longer occur because the market is not in equilibrium. Therefore, deadweight loss occur when government intervention reduce economic efficiency by preventing the market from achieving its optimal equilibrium outcome. Alright, that's all from me. Thank you. Now I'm going to pass to my group mate to present the rest.
We have discussed how the government set prices, but what happens when those regulations push the market too far? So that's why we get black markets. A black market is defined as bully buying and selling at prices that violate the government price regulations. But why do they arise? It usually happens when the government imposes a price ceiling or floor that creates a shortage. So because the legal supply is limited but demand is high, and unregulated market emerges to meet the excess demand. Essentially, the sellers capitalize on imbalance, charging higher illegal prices because they know consumers are desperate. Okay, next we look at the graph on the right. You can see the legal price ceiling is set low at the $1,500. However, this low price creates a massive shortage, the gap between the supply and demand. Because of this shortage, desperate buyers are willing to pay much more. If you follow the vertical line up from the shortage quantity to the demand curve, you hit the black market price at $2,500. This is significantly higher than even the original equilibrium price of $2,000. The notes here highlight the three major negative consequences of these situations. First one is the loss of government revenue. Since these transactions are off the books, the government collects no taxes on them. Second is about the unfair competition. Legitimate business are undermined because the black market sellers ignore regulations and steal demand. Third is the social instability. Perhaps the most concerning, these markets often fund criminal organizations which destabilizes a society. Next slide is about the government interventions, price floors and ceilings. To summarize our sections on price controls, whether it is a price floor or a price ceiling, there are always winners and losers. So first, the price floors increases producer surplus but decrease the consumer plus. Price ceilings to do the reverse. But the most important takeaway is that the both cause deadweight loss. This represents economic inefficiency, and net loss of total welfare for society. So now let's briefly discuss how the economists analyze these situations. We use two methods. The first one is a positive analysis. This describes what is. So it deals with facts, data, and evidence that can be tested. For example, saying Malaysia inflation rose in 2023 is a positive statement because we can verify it with data. The second is about the normative analysis. This describes what should be it based on the opinions and values. For example, saying the government should be reduces fuel prices is a normative judgment. And next slide we discuss about the positive versus normative analysis. We have two types of analysis, the positive and normative. The positive analysis describes the what is, and it based on facts, data, and evidence. It can be tested and proven true or false. For example, Malaysian inflation rate rose in 2023 is a positive statement. For the normative analysis, on the other hand, describes what should be is based on the opinions, the values and judgments that cannot be tested with the data. For example, saying the government should reduce the fuel price is a normative statement. It is a normative statement. You might think that if the government taxes the sellers pay the full cost, or if they tax buyers, the buyers pay. But in economics, it's not as simple. Tax incidence refers to the actual divisions of the tax burden between the buyers and sellers, regardless of who physically writes the check to the government. Just like the price controls, taxes are also result in deadweight loss, meaning they create insufficiency in the market. So let's look at our first example, a 10% per gallon tax imposed on gasoline. In this top of graph, we view the tax as a cost of producers because now the cost is all more to sell gasoline. The supply curve shift to the left from a S to S1. Here what happens to the price. So originally the price is equilibrium price was $1.50. After the tax, the price buyers pay rises to $1.59. However, the sellers don't keep the full amount. After sending the tax to the government, the price the seller actually receives drops to the $1.49. So even though the tax is 10 cents, the buyers pays 9 cents more. The sellers keeps 1 cent less. Now look at the bottom graph. What if the tax is being imposed on the buyers instead? In the case, the demand curve is shifted to the left from the D to DD. The why? Because the fewer uh, people are willing to purchase the good at the higher tax price, leading to the less output. The price customer pays effectively becomes a 1.59 dollar. The price sellers receive the 1.49 dollar. Whether the tax shifts the supply curve on the curve demand, the market outcomes is identical. The quantity falls, the buyers pays more, then the sellers receive less. In the previous slide, we saw the tax drivers are wedged between the price buyers pay and the price sellers device. So here to quantify the wage. So first look at the color rectangle, the represent the tax burden. The customer burden in the yellow area, the price buyers went to up from the 1.550 dollar to the 1.59 dollar. This means the customers paying an extra 9 cents per gallon. The producer burden in the green area, the price sellers receive a drop from 1.50 dollar to 1.49 dollar. This means the producer is only absorbing 1 cent of tax. Finally, we have the small gray triangle label, date weight loss. The triangle represents the excess burden from tax. It is economic value that is simply lost. Transactions that would have happened at the old price but are not happening now because the quantity dropped to 20 billion gallons. Neither the buyer nor the government gets its value. It simply vanishes. On the next slide, we are looking at the taxation calculation. So we move to the graph to actual math. So we are going to calculate the exact how tax changes in the market equations. So before that, we look at what is the tax. It is an extra charge imposed by the government on firm. This tax increases the cost of production for a firm. The result, the firm will try to transfer the burden to the consumer by increasing the selling price. So let's focus on the equation section, the part A. So we have the question is like this. We have given the two equations. The demand, quantity demand equals to 70 minus 2p, and supply 2p equals to QS quantity supply minus 10. So the party has to determine the initial equilibrium price and quantity. First, we are rearrange the supply equations to make a quantity supply subject. If the 2p is equals to QS minus 10, then QS equals to 10 plus 2p. To find the equilibrium, we send the quantity supply and quantity demand. Quantity supply equals to quantity demand. So we can get the answer is the price is 15 ringgit. The substituting the price is back to the equations as the quantity of 40 units. So our starting point of price is of 15 ringgit and 40 units sold. So next we are looking at the focus on the part B. The part B is about the government imposes the tax of 2 ringgit per unit. So we need to find the new supply equations. Here the logical calculation, the producer used to supply the based on the price, but now for every unit they sell the price of P, and they have to pay the 2 ringgit to the government. So the actual recipe is P minus 2. So after the calculations, then we see the new supply equations. That means the quantity supply is equals to 6 plus 2p. The equations is what we would use if we needed to calculate the new and the higher market. We shift to discuss about the subsidies. While the tax is a burden, a subsidy is a financial help from the government to sellers. This is the most important things to remember here is the price relationship, because the government is chipping in money. The price of sellers or services will higher than the price of the buyers pay. So let's look at the calculation of the example provided. So we start our initial equations like a demand QD is equals to the 9000 minus 1000 PB price buyers, and supply is equals to the 2000 minus 3000. Initial equilibrium, the price was the initial equilibrium, the price was $4 and quantity was 5,000 gallons. Now the government introduced the subsidy of the $0.375 per unit. Here is how we find the new equilibrium prices. Step 1, we define the relationship. We know the seller gets the whatever the buyers pays plus the subsidy amount. So we write the equations. PS equals to PB plus 0.375. Step 2, substitute into the supply equations. We replace the PS in our supply equations with our new definition. QS equals to 2000 in bracket the PB plus 0.375 minus with 3000. So when we expand the 2000 times 0.375 give us 750. So quantity supply equals to the 2000 PB plus 750 is minus 3000. So step 3, we have look at the solve the equilibrium. Set the marginal limit of the equal of new supply, that quantity demand equals to quantity supply. So 9000 minus 1000 pp equals to 2000 pp minus 2250. Solving the pp price bias. So we find the price bias to pay the drops to $3.75. So finally we calculate the sellers get the price supply by adding the subsidy back in. So in the last slide we look at the intersections of the blue and red lines. The first, the original equilibrium. Before the subsidy, the market was stable at price of $4 and quantity of 5,000 gallons. The subsidy creates the vertical gaps between curves. Notice the vertical dash line in the new quantity of 5,250. Along this time, we can see the two distinct price we saw for. The first one is the bottom point. The price buyers pay has dropped to $3.75. Top point, the price sellers receive has risen to the $4.125. The vertical distance between those 2 points are exactly $0.375, the value of a subsidy. Finally, we need to determine the cost of the government. It is represented by the shape of rectangular area between the two prices. We use the formula shown in the bottom right. The formula is the total cost equals to the amounts of subsidy multiplied by the new quantity. 0.375 times to 5,250. The give us a final total cost of it 968.75 per day. So the subsidy of successfully lower the price for buyers and increase the quantity sold, but it comes at a daily cost of nearly $2,000 to the government. That's all from our group of presentations. Thank you.